verse did you say that we're on?
We are at verse 72, and the name of the article is The Bread of the First Fruits. This is the portion of Tetzaveh. It's my volume 12, and it's page 46.
Thank you.
Let's invite in our Kabbalistic lineage of the Rav and Karen and Michael, Rabbi Shlag, Rav Branwan, the Ariya Kodesh, the Ramchal, Rabbi Tarfon, Rav Avram Azulai, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, Rav Kolonis Shapir Piasetzlan, the Baal Shem Tov, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai and all the students, Rav Mordechai Chernobyl, one soul with Yosef Atzadik and Shem. Actually, today is the 9th of Adar. We are approaching Purim, the happiest day on the calendar. The only holiday that survives the arrival of Messiah. I mean, it's the holiday that we keep. So it's a real connection to joy and happiness and fulfillment. It's like the doors to the vault, are open for 24 hours. So we want to do everything we can to grab as much joy and happiness and fulfillment for the whole year. There's so much more to it we didn't have time for. The half shekel that we raise and consciousness for that, which is very, very also powerful about fulfillment for the year for us and our families. And the other thing is that since this Saturday, like all Shabbat that come before Purim, we read Zohar, which is also a very strong connection to raising our consciousness and strengthening our consciousness, because Zohar is all about doubt, how we overcome doubt. And it's not like we want to take things in, it's not a matter of blind faith. That's a great restaurant in Evanston, but it's not really what our practice is all about. Our practice is about knowing. Our practice is about, faith really is a word that part of faith means I'm just taking it on faith. I don't know. No, we are about experiential connections. And that only happens when you have a level of confidence and a level of consciousness. So it's a great opportunity to strengthen our consciousness in advance of Purim. Because I can say to you, the doors are open for all the joy and fulfillment for the year. But if we don't have a consciousness around that, we can't even connect in that way. So tomorrow morning is an excellent opportunity for that, which brings us to verse 72. And as we connect to this, let's have a consciousness of, this is our one world energy encounter with the Zohar. So here we are connecting to the energy from the upper realm of fulfillment, of healing for everyone we know who needs healing, of removal of conflict, of protection from evil eye and evil speech, the consciousness to refrain from engaging in evil eye and evil speech, the consciousness of connecting to and channeling avat chinam, unconditional love for everyone in the world. And we are on the road for Passover, so we want to be conscious of continue to prepare for that. Okay, verse 72. Shrein hame achlu Yisrael, chad kad nafku mimitzrayim, achlu matzah, lechem oni, echad b'mad barad lechem min hashamayim, dichtiv, ini mamtir lachem lechem min hashamayim, v'al da karbana de yomada nahama ihu, v'al nahama itkarivu kol sha'ar karbanim, de nahama ihu ikar, dichtiv, v'ikravtem al halechem shivat kavasim v'gomer, mimoshvotechem taviu lechem tunufa v'gomer, the da ihu nahama the ach kimu be Yisrael chach mata ilaha de oraitav alu be'archaha. Peter,
2 types of bread were eaten by Yisrael when they left Egypt. They matzah, the bread of affliction, which is bread from malchut. It says 2 types. Where's the second type? And in the wilderness they ate bread from heaven, which is the bread of Zeranpin that is called heaven, as is written.
okay, so those are the 2 breads. I think we need to take a step back, because there's plenty of attention in modern society and culture to pay to diet and the things that are healthy and the things perhaps that are not. It's of course changed over time. when I was a child, certain things were healthy that are not healthy now, and vice versa. I mean, I grew up on a low-fat diet, and now I don't do that because apparently that can create other problems. So are we talking here about what's the importance of the diet of the children of Israel thousands of years ago? Why is that relevant? How's that relevant to today? Because if this doesn't have present relevance, then we're missing the boat. We're literally missing the boat. This has to have relevance in our lives right now. It's never about history. It's never about the dietary habits of the children of Israel. It's never about what the weather was like. It's not about any of those things. It is relevant to our present lives in the present moment. And so part of what this awakens for us right off the bat is an appreciation for the things that we do. We don't want to do anything without a reason. We shouldn't do anything without it. Why would you do something if you didn't know the reason for it? Well, because your ancestors did it. No, it's not satisfactory. Not on this path. That's never okay. If it's worked for somebody else, knock your socks off. But it doesn't, on this path, that's never satisfactory. We always need to know the reason. So at an initial level, and especially here we're going into Shabbat. We have an extra reading, as I mentioned, of Zohar. We have Purim next week, which is, is it about honoring, Mordechai and Esther back in Persia 2,000 years ago? Is that what that's? It's just a holiday, recognizing what happened then? No. And then here we are approaching Passover. So there's a lot to figure out. And we're not going to figure it all out, but we're going to figure a lot of it out. But the first thing we need to understand is we need to understand why it's relevant to our lives. And I can say personally, I went through, the first 4.5 decades of my life without any sense of what the relevance was, other than just do it. A slogan that was stolen by Nike. Anyhow, I use that, that's a joke. It's not really true. They didn't steal anything. So what are the bread? So here we are, we're focusing on why bread. What is the big deal with bread? So bread is a huge magnet for fulfillment from the upper realm, which is why you see every Shabbat evening, every Shabbat meal, every holiday evening meal and lunch meal, we always start with bread. Why? Because it's not a meal without bread. I mean, some people feel that way, it's not a meal without bread. No, it's not about that. It's about all the things that we do to connect to a unique window in time. And since we have the opportunity to connect to different types of fulfillment and different types of energy in different windows of time, the bread is there to assist us in channeling that energy. So I'll ask you a question as we get started on this. We haven't gotten into this yet, but tonight, Shabbat evening, all around the world, people will be, making their connections, in the evening service, and then they will be going to their dining room table and beginning a meal. Candles will already be lit. That's another, specifically candles are there to assist us in channeling the energy of the Shekhinah into our homes for Shabbat. And by the way, the reason why women light them is because they're more elevated. And so they're in a better position to channel the energy of the Shekhinah into our homes. And then we go to our dining room table and we pick up the glass of wine and we say Kiddush, and then we say, then we uncover the bread and we make hamotzi on the bread. So the question is, what's more important, the wine or the bread? Anyone want to take a stab at it? You would think the wine's more important because it goes first. They're both huge magnets, huge channels for the energy available to us on Shabbat. The reason that our teachers have explained, the reason why it's really the bread that's more important, that we cover the bread. we're saying Kiddush like the bread isn't there. It's not revealed yet. But it is the bread that is the more significant connection. Because again, bread is a huge magnet for energy from the upper realm. So that's why it becomes the focus when the children of Israel leave Egypt en route to the revelation event at Mount Sinai. There's we know the whole story, split in the sea, whatever. Why are we talking about the bread? Why is that important? Because so they wouldn't starve? Of course, again, it's about the internal energy. It's about what that bread, what that matzah really represents. So the Zohar is telling us in this week's portion of Tetzaveh, the Zohar is telling us that there were two kinds of breads. The matzah that they made when they left, and then manna from heaven. Every day for 40 years, manna literally fell from heaven. Which is a bizarre concept. But what it does, what part of what we want to connect to in this idea of connecting to manna is to understand that all our fulfillment comes from the upper realm. And that's another opportunity that we have here. Okay. The other thing is that, what is the deal? Why wasn't it just bread? Why did they have to make matzah? And in the literal story, and we read this at the Seder, it's, they were in a rush to leave, and so they didn't let the bread rise before baking it. That's the literal story. So they were in a rush. That's why we have matzah, and that's why we have it today. No, it cannot be that simple.
By the way, one technical part about the story, David,
Yeah.
is that actually they had all night to bake the bread. They didn't do it. So just if we're talking,
I'm just saying. Yeah, good
a
point.
different way.
Good point. They were packing up. What do you mean they didn't have time? How long does it take for the bread to rise? Just over 18 minutes, starts rising. So it doesn't even jive with logic. It's a good point, Peter. Thanks for that. So the question is, what really was going on? What was the rush? Was it really a rush? Obviously not. So what really was going on? And we're gonna dive into that right now. And the other thing to think about is so they had the matzah and then the manna. And so it's this central theme of bread that runs through the narrative of leaving Egypt and then living in the desert for 40 years. And it can't just be about their dietary habits. There's no way that that's what it's about. Okay, keep going.
Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. Therefore, the offering of this day of the Feast of Weeks is bread, and all the other offerings were offered with bread.
Okay,
The
so interestingly enough, the holiday in which we connect to the energy that was made available to us on Mount Sinai is Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks. And there were sacrifices that were given on Shavuot, and they all include bread. They all include bread. Something else that's interesting to note, there's a lot of discussion about in this week's portion of Tetzaveh, about the clothing that the Kohen wore. And again, this is not Fashion Week for us. That's not what it's about. It's not about the styles of the day, the fashion styles of the day among the priestly group. It's not what it's about. All of those specific things that the Kohen wore there's specific consciousness behind that. We don't have time to go into it, but again, it's like all the aspects of it we're connecting to. There's the literal story, and then there's the deeper significance. So again, we see that bread is actually part of the offerings. Okay, keep going.
The bread is the main part, as is written, and you shall offer with bread 7 lambs. So,
by the way, it's like sliced grilled lamb on garlic bread. No, it's like the bread was the offering. The lambs are just the addition. Go ahead.
You shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves. From this is the bread with which Yisrael became wise with the supernal wisdom of the Torah and entered its ways.
So here we are in verse 72 in volume 12, Tetzaveh. Here we are talking about this bread and the matzah and then the manna from heaven and this central role that bread has in our lives. Again, not about the diet. It's about the energy, the internal energy. Think about food in general. I mean, we think on a 1% level, we eat because we're hungry, we eat because we need nourishment, and that's all true. But food is also the delivery system for the energy that we need to keep this body consciousness going also. It's all about body consciousness. And if we're here, we have work we need to do, and we need to leverage the body consciousness to do a lot of work. We just want to use our consciousness to overcome that body consciousness in important times. But like, you plug your phone in, well, where do we get plugged in? Well, one of the sources of energy we get is the food that we eat. We can look at that as just like, oh, it's just food coming from the ground or energy coming from the sun. Those are just the channels. The energy is coming from the Creator. It was obvious when we had to go gather the manna from heaven every morning. It's obvious where it was coming from in that circumstance. But here it's not as obvious. So what is the punchline? What is it that we gain from having the consciousness of understanding that bread is actually a spiritual magnet? Because that's what because Yisrael, the children became wise in the supernal wisdom of the Torah and entered its ways. This was like the bread is the focus for us here, because here we are en route to Mount Sinai to receive the Bible, to receive the Torah, and to manifest immortality. It wasn't just bread for the sake of keep me going until dinner time. The energy wasn't about that. It was about assisting us in connecting to the upper realm, in understanding this concept of immortality, because we went to Mount Sinai to regain the consciousness of the Garden of Eden, the energy of the Garden of Eden, to manifest immortality in this world. And we had it. We had manifested until the sin of the golden calf. So that's the significance of Shavuot. We again connect to immortality. And that's the significance of part of what we're connecting to here. We're still connecting to this idea that everything comes from the upper realm. And in the upper realm, there is no end. There is no second law of thermodynamics where everything falls apart and ages and gets stale. Doesn't bread get stale? That's the interesting thing. The bread in the temple never got stale. The showbread that was in the temple did not get stale. The temple itself and the tabernacle were spaces that we created with very specific instructions so that the Creator and the Shekhinah could rest there. So you had this energy of upper realm in the temple. And so the second law of thermodynamics was held in abeyance in that realm. The bread didn't get stale. It's one of the miracles of the temple itself. Like time was frozen. Okay.
Wait, David, I
Yes.
have a couple of questions and also maybe it's a statement. So when I eat, I always make sure I say the prayers prior to eating. And I'm thinking about it in the context of the bread. So when I say the prayers, what I'm actually thinking about in that moment is many different things, but generally that I'm connecting to the creative process, right? I'm actually taking something that the Creator intended, right? So it's trying to draw whatever that spiritual aspect is that will give us, right, the real energy of the food. So when I'm thinking of that and I see the bread first, I never thought about the context of, so the bread, right, in some way, right, you're saying at holidays and whatever, Shabbat, when we have the bread first. So it actually has a I want to say, I'm thinking of it, there's a spiritual physical function.
A metaphysical process going on.
Right, that precedes the eating.
By the
And-
way, the same bread eaten before candle lighting doesn't do anything for you.
Right, that's sort of what I'm asking, right?
Yeah,
There's
it doesn't. It's like, you can shake your lulav before Sukkot, but it's a powerful metaphysical tool once the holiday starts. You can put your sukkah up and walk around in it, and it can be totally ready for the holiday Sukkot, but not until candle lighting is it on, metaphysically.
So when they say the
And when you step into it on Sukkot, you are now in a completely different energy field than you were outside of it. And then what it was like, even the same sukkah, was a different energy field before Sukkot started. And that table that you're eating your Shabbat dinner on or Shabbat lunch, it's a whole different table. All the food. So, there's things about, listen, let's have a nice meal on Shabbat. Sure, we're celebrating, it's the holiday. Shabbat is very special. Yes. But the food is helping us manifest the energy available on Shabbat. It's one of the ways that we internalize the energy that's available is through the three meals that we have. Yes, Andrea.
So I have a question. So when we light candles, and there's a very specific time lighting candles on Shabbat. So if you're over like 1 minute past, it seems to be, it's not, I mean, I've been told it just doesn't, it don't do it because it says there's no point anymore, right? Is that like if it's at 5:14 and you light it at 5:16?
I mean, I'll tell you what happened to me because I live on my own, so I have a whole checklist.
Mhm.
I have an app where there's like a whole checklist. I
Yeah.
have a Shabbat, basically it's get ready for Shabbat checklist. And I go down all the things, turn the light on here, do this, set the clock, whatever, shut the fridge lights off, a whole bunch of things. And the last thing on the list is light candles. But I shut my phone off before I light the candles. So I have forgotten. I'm walking down the street on my way to make Friday Night Connection. I realized, oh my God, I forgot to light the candles. It's too late. I could have gone back. It was too late. Shabbat had already started. There is an 18-minute period of time between candle lightings and when actually the time for lighting candles ends. But there is a window.
Oh, there's a window.
There is a window.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. That's a great question. You're right.
Mhm.
Lighting candles before Shabbat actually starts is not the same thing as lighting it after. It's not the same. Peter?
What do you, when it's a 2 wave loaves, I'm just curious, what did you interpret that
I
as?
think the priest waved loaves of bread
Okay.
in the temple.
By the way, there's an app for that. It's called Shabbat Times. Oh, you
What
can't.
is it? What it serves candlelight times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. But you have to, once you light candles, you can't look at it. Andrea?
Because there's times where I will forget if it's like 5:14, right? And I will.
So you know
forget.
that the official time for lighting candles is 5:14. Okay.
Yes. Is it okay to light them at 5? I mean, yeah,
Oh, you can light them early.
that's what I meant. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
you can light them early.
Okay.
But once you light them, if depending on what kind of restrictions you accept for yourself on Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, like I don't turn the lights on and off in Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
So once I light candles, whatever it is, I'm stuck with it. Oh my God, I forgot to turn the island lights on. Too late.
Did you know that those refrigerators have Shabbat refrigerator
Yes,
setting?
yes.
Yeah.
The new line of a lot of technology has Shabbat settings. I have a coffee urn that has a Shabbat setting too.
Oh, wow.
However, isn't there like a leeway for people who are not Jewish, high laws that they can still light things because
Yes.
they're not really,
Yes, that is true.
they haven't converted fully.
They
or they're
have-
not Jewish,
That's the thing. If once you accept the full path,
Mhm.
the rules are different than when you have not. So that's a good thing to talk to your teacher about as to like how to navigate those things. Good point, Yair. Thanks for bringing that up.
Mhm.
And I was just gonna say that my ovens have Shabbat functions.
Right, right. Yeah, because it maintains the temperature. So the door open, door closed doesn't, it won't, you open the door and all of a sudden the thermostat kicks on. That's the issue on the oven, as opposed to just keeping things warm. Or, what I always do is whenever I'm warming up for Friday night, I put in the oven, I put it to 500. Before I light candles, I shut it off, and then, then it stays warm for dinner. Now, I love things that are overcooked, so I'm fine with that too. Okay. A lot of very practical things, but again, it's about positioning ourselves, aligning ourselves with the extra energy that's available on Shabbat. And that energy includes manifesting unbelievable blessings, because it's the most powerful day of the year and it happens every week. And also an opportunity to remove the chaos, injecting certainty, injecting order, and removing chaos that we are potentially going to encounter in the week to come. We're literally getting everything back in order again. So here we are dealing with the bread. Verse 73. Hash'it lan istakla b'Pesach nafku Yisrael min hama dit karei chametz. Ketiv la yira'etz l'cha chametz. Uchativ ki kol ochel machmetzet ma'itama. Begin yikara dahu nahama dit karei matzah. Hash'it zachu Yisrael lenahama ila ayatir la ye'ot hava litbat la chametz. V'la'it chazya kalal. Va'amai karbanada chametz hava. Dirtiv soloti yena chametz te'afena. V'tu dahasha b'yoma da itbatal yitzerara v'oraita di kare chiru ishtechachat. Peter?
We should now observe that during Pesach, Yisrael came away from the bread that is called chametz, as is written, and there shall no leavened bread be seen, and for whoever eats that which is leavened. Not a complete sentence.
Okay. Well, right. It's just, but what it's saying is, so they're both verses from Shemot, and the second one is just, it's a line that is referring to the distinction between leavened and unleavened bread. That's the goal. That's what they bring up, which leads to the question:
what is the reason that they abandoned chametz?
Yeah, what's the deal? What's the big deal? We have a special bread recipe. We use the ingredients, but we don't cook it more than 18 minutes. It's just our practice. That's our practice. Why? That's what we do. Because the children of Israel didn't have time to let the bread rise. That's the narrative. That's the story. And again, personally, I reached a point in time in my life where that didn't work anymore. I needed to find more purpose and meaning behind the things that we do. Now, interestingly, let's say Shabbat tonight. Do I get more of a connection to the internal energy of the bread if I have an extra slice? No, you just got to connect to the bread. You have a taste. Just like we have a taste of fish. I don't want to get into that, but you have a taste. You've made a connection. What about Passover? When the Seder starts, you just have a bite of matzah? No, you got to eat as much as you can. It's totally different. Why? Why this arbitrariness? It's not arbitrary at all. There's a reason behind everything. So the question is, what is chametz? What is the reason? Go ahead.
It is because of the honor of the bread that is called matzah.
Oh, we're just honoring the bread. Oh, that clears everything up. The last thing you want to do is embarrass the bread. By the way, that's one of the explanations for why on Friday night we say kiddush, but the bread is covered. We don't want to humiliate the bread.
It's also why you make sure that when the two loaves that are in the middle, you take only the loaf that was on top too.
So, okay, so my question is, have you ever come across a humiliated loaf of bread? This is a projection of a human emotion on on an inanimate object. Inanimate, is bread inanimate? Yeah, it's inanimate. On an inanimate object. It doesn't, I'm not saying it doesn't have consciousness. I'm not even saying there's not, I don't get a soul isn't there, but it's not animated. It doesn't, the bread does not have human emotions. These expressions are there for us, for us to be more sensitive about all things.
Hey, David,
Yes.
wait, I'm thinking about that. Is bread inanimate? Because when it's obviously before it's baked, it's got yeast, it's got live
It's
culture.
rising, it's actually moving.
Right, wait, it decays. So then I would
Well,
think it's,
everything decays here.
but that doesn't make it, makes it animate, not inanimate, I think.
Well, I guess we'd have to find a definition for animate, but comes from the source animal. They're probably related because it's not from the animal kingdom. It's from the vegetable kingdom.
That
Okay,
reminds me of when you serve something to other people, how you do it shows a lot whether you care about them or not, you know? Because you might throw a piece of something on the plate of someone and they're gonna be like, whoa, well, what the heck was that about, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's about us and overcoming our nature and being sensitive to the people around us.
Mhm.
It's about us. These are all opportunities for our growth. And to connect to the energy available, we need to keep ego in check. We need to keep body consciousness in check. All the restrictions on Shabbat and holidays, for that matter, are all about us keeping body consciousness in check so we can be more available to make the spiritual connection. And this is no different.
So it's kind of like when you go to a restaurant, it's a little short story. The waiter, like something, he's serving plantains or something, and the plantain falls to the floor. And instead of picking up from the floor, he kicked it under the table. And I was like, what? Now, this is supposed to be like a nice, fancy restaurant. It's just like, this is food under the table.
He's hoping nobody saw it, I'm sure. He's hoping nobody saw it. No 5 second rule in the fancy hotel, in a fancy restaurant, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You have to wonder if they use the 5 second rule in the dining room, how many second rule is there back in the kitchen where no one can see what's going on?
I know. Oh my God.
Yeah, so I don't know. Anyhow, it's a good story. He's probably hoping nobody noticed. So here we are being introduced to this concept of chametz. And we're being told that it's to honor the bread. That's called matzah. It can't be that. It can't be. It doesn't make sense. It can't be that. We're not honoring the bread. We are showing up. It's not the honor on the bread. It's us showing up, recognizing the significance of the energy that's in the matzah. What is the energy in the matzah? What's the point of the matzah? Every crunch, you're destroying ego. And by the way, you could eat matzah all year long, but it doesn't work the same way it does at the Seder on the first night of Passover. It's not even close. You are literally obliterating ego, body consciousness. And so it's not honoring, the matzah isn't walking around saying, I cannot believe David is not showing the proper amount of honor. That's not what's happening. It's me. It's on me. It's all about you. It's always all about you. In no good way. In the way where it's all about us and trying to grow and trying to expand and trying to get out of our comfort zone and to become more sensitive to people around us and more sensitive in the situations that are going on around us. And in availing ourselves of the tools that are available. It's about us in that sense. It's about what's in our blind spot. It's about where are we showing up with body consciousness and with insensitivity. Okay, keep going.
He asks, now that Yisrael merited a higher bread, the bread of Zeranpin, Would it not have been proper for the chametz to be abolished and not be seen at all?
Yeah, okay, if we decide that chametz is that getting rid of chametz, and by the way, it's again back to my point, like tonight, a taste of bread is fine. There is actually a legal minimum we're not gonna get into. Like, it's not like you could just have a little, like a bird piece, like a piece of bird would eat. You gotta, there is a minimum, but it's not like matzah on the Seder where we're eating as much as we can, because the more we eat, the more ego we crush throughout the holiday. But the question is, if matzah is so special, why didn't we just at that point just do without chametz the whole year? Just crush your ego all year. Go ahead.
Why was the offering of the first fruits bread chametz, as it is written, they shall be of fine flour, they shall be baked with leaven?
Yeah, and when it came to the bread offering on Shavuot, it wasn't matzah, it was leavened bread. So what's going on? Why sometimes unleavened? Why sometimes leavened? You know, the traditional explanation is like Passover, we just do without leaven. But why? And if we're doing it leaven, why not deal without leaven all year long? Do without it if it's so special. Go ahead.
Also on this day, the evil inclination was negated, which is the secret of chametz, as the Torah. That is called freedom was available. When did they bring chametz?
Okay, so the point is, and we discussed this already, but the point is the opportunity to remove ego, evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the opportunity is on Passover. It is a window in time to do that. Can I remove my evil inclination the rest of the year? Yes, but it's turbocharged on Passover. And that's the opportunity that we have. 74. Ela malka dahava le bar yechidai b'chalash. Yom achad hava ta'ir lemechal. Amru yechul berei de malka asvatada. V'ad yechul le. La yishtechach mechla umezona achara beveta. Avdu hachi. Kevin da'achal hahu asvata. Amar mikanu lahala yechul kol di'u ta'iv. V'la yachil lenaska. Lenaskale.
He answers, this is similar to a king who had an only son who became ill.
Okay, so, all right. So many times the Zohar, in trying to help us understand the significance of what they're talking about, gives us a little story, a little mashal, a story to illustrate. I love the stories because you got to really think about what are they talking about. Go ahead.
One day he wished to eat. They said, let the king's son take this medicine, but before he eats it, no food whatsoever should be in the house.
Okay, so I just want to point out that we read a story in our Balak class with another king and a son this week. Just pointing out the synchronicity of that. So what's this particular story about? Well, the king has a son who's ill, and one day the son wished to eat. Okay, keep going.
They did so, and after he had taken the medicine, they said, from now on, he may eat whatever he desires, and it will do no harm.
So the answer that the Zohar is giving us is that the reason we do the matzah is because it's positioning us to be available to anything the rest of the year. Again, is this like dietary habits of Middle Eastern tribes back 3,000 years ago? No, it's not about what happened. It's about what's happening. And we have an opportunity to crush our ego with the matzah. And it's a unique window in time coming up in another 5 weeks, I think. So it's soon. It's coming up. So what's our takeaway in all this? A takeaway in all this is it's all about our consciousness. It's all about using the tools to not only grow in our consciousness and grow in appreciation of what we have going on, but to literally avail ourselves of the unique energy available to us in different windows in time. thereby creating significant purpose and meaning behind all the things that we do, otherwise known as rituals. They're not rituals. They're not empty. They're fulfilled. They're giving us the opportunity to connect to energy and consciousness and blessings available to us through our connection to the metaphysical realm, to the upper realm, to the realm where all fulfillment, where all healing is available to us. Okay. With that, Shabbat Shalom. Love you all.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Take care. Thank you, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, David. Thank you.